thug slapped an 81-year-old veteran in a diner. Then his son walked in with the Hells Angels. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning, the kind of morning that felt slow, peaceful, and ordinary. The smell of coffee drifted through the air, bacon sizzled on the grill, and a few locals murmured softly over their breakfast plates at Mary's Diner, a small roadside cafe that had seen decades of sunrises, goodbyes, and the silent stories of those who sat within its walls. But that morning, something would happen that no one in that diner would ever forget. It began when an old man, frail, silver-haired, and wearing a worn-out army jacket with faded patches, struggled to lift his coffee cup with trembling hands. That man was Henry Cole, an 81-year-old veteran of the Korean War, a man who once stood tall and fearless on foreign soil but now walked with a cane and the quiet weight of memories too heavy to speak of. Before we dive deeper into Henry's unforgettable story, take a moment to support this channel, Royal Stories. If you believe in kindness, respect, and second chances, then please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who still believes in humanity, and don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps keep these real, emotional stories alive. Henry had been coming to Mary's Diner every Sunday for as long as anyone could remember. He would always sit at the same corner booth, the one near the window, where sunlight hit his coffee cup just right. The waitress, a kind woman named Lydia, would always greet him with a warm smile and a gentle pat on the shoulder. He'd talk about his late wife, his time in the army, and how proud he was of his son, Jack, who was serving overseas with the Marines. The entire town respected Henry, not just for his service, but for the humility and kindness that radiated from him. But that morning, a group of young men walked into the diner, loud, drunk from the night before, and full of arrogance. Their laughter was sharp, the kind that made everyone else quiet down. One of them, a muscular man in his late 20s with tattoos crawling up his neck, noticed Henry sitting alone. His name was Troy, and he was the kind of man who found strength in making others feel small. Henry, trying to sip his coffee, accidentally spilled a bit on the counter. It was nothing, really, just a small tremor from old age. But Troy sneered, mocking him under his breath. "Hey, old man," he said, his tone thick with disdain, "maybe you should stay home instead of drooling all over the table." The diner went silent. Henry looked up, startled but calm, his eyes tired but still steady. He didn't respond. He just wiped the spill with a napkin and whispered something to himself, something like, "It's all right." Troy didn't like that. He wanted a reaction, wanted to feel powerful. He stepped closer, towering over Henry's booth. "I said something to you, old man. Don't ignore me." When Henry still didn't respond, Troy smirked, reached over, and slapped the old man across the face. The sound cracked through the diner like thunder. The coffee cup fell and shattered. Lydia gasped. Everyone froze. Henry's glasses fell off and broke on the floor. For a moment, he just sat there, trembling, eyes glistening, not from fear, but from something deeper, heartbreak. The room filled with stunned silence, and in that silence, a heavy door creaked open. The sound of motorcycles rumbled outside, loud, deep, and powerful. Heads turned as a group of Hells Angels bikers stepped inside the diner, their leather jackets bearing the unmistakable emblem of the Brotherhood. At the front of the group was a man with broad shoulders, a rugged beard, and piercing blue eyes. He scanned the room once, and his gaze stopped on Henry. "Dad," he said, his voice low, confused, and then instantly filled with rage as he saw the mark on his father's face. It was Jack Cole, Henry's son. The same son Henry had spoken about every Sunday, the same Marine who had just returned home after years overseas. The diner fell into complete silence. Troy, the thug, turned pale. He looked from the bikers to the old man, realizing too late that he had made a terrible mistake. Jack walked slowly toward his father, his boots echoing on the floor. He knelt beside Henry, gently lifted his broken glasses, and whispered something only his father could hear. Henry's eyes filled with tears as he nodded weakly. Then Jack stood up, his face dark with fury, and turned toward Troy. The air in the diner was electric, tense, thick with the weight of what was about to happen. The Hell's Angels behind Jack didn't move or speak. They didn't need to. Their mere presence filled the room with unspoken power. Jack's voice, calm but sharp as a blade, cut through the air. "You hit my father," he asked quietly. Troy stammered, trying to explain, trying to pretend it wasn't what it looked like. But it was too late. Jack didn't raise his fist. He didn't need to. He simply leaned in and said, "You'll walk out of here, but you'll never forget what you did." The bikers surrounded Troy, not touching him, just letting their silence crush him. The fear in his eyes said everything. He stumbled out of the diner, his friends following, too scared to look back. When they left, the room exhaled a long, trembling breath. Lydia came over, tears in her eyes, and brought Henry a fresh cup of coffee. Jack sat beside his father, his hand still shaking from adrenaline, but his heart heavy with pain. Henry didn't want revenge. He never did. All he wanted was for people to remember kindness, respect, and decency, things the world seemed to be forgetting. As they sat together, father and son, Jack apologized for not being home sooner. Henry smiled softly and said, "You came back when it mattered." The bikers stayed for hours, making sure Henry was okay. When they finally left, the town knew, not because of violence, but because of presence, that you don't disrespect those who've carried the weight of sacrifice. From that day on, Mary's Diner became more than a small roadside cafe. It became a symbol, a place where people remembered what respect truly meant. Weeks later, Troy showed up again. But this time, he wasn't drunk or loud. He came quietly, holding a folded American flag in his hands. He walked up to Henry and apologized, tears in his eyes. Henry, the man who had seen too much pain in his lifetime, simply reached out his hand and said, "It takes courage to say sorry, son." That moment, that silent forgiveness, was more powerful than any punishment could ever be. Because in the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about redemption. About remembering that no matter how cruel the world can be, one act of grace can change everything. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something deep inside, then please like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness and respect still matter, and subscribe to Royal Stories for more powerful, real-life tales.